Well, welcome to another broadcast on Win TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer. And I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's Informer. Ooh, here I am. Hope you had a chance to pick it up. I love, as I said, always like showing that we're still printing the newspaper. So if you want to know where to get a copy that you can hold in your hand and flip through the pages. And, I should also mention this week in the edition of the former Informer, at the end of every month, the Bridge is published inside. So we have a copy of the Bridge as well. Wanted to show that to you. It's an interesting, great story, a lot of storytelling about young women entrepreneurs. They're saluting Women's History Month this month. So if you didn't pick up a copy, or if you prefer to read the digital edition, you can access that online at WashingtonInformer.com. And there you can not only read the digital edition, you can also sign up to get the Washington Informer delivered straight to your email box every Thursday. So consider that if you're not already a subscriber, and it's free. I need to say that it's free. So make sure you follow up and actually subscribe. We would love to have you as a part of the Washington Informer family. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we will most definitely follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. We've got a really packed show today and some great company we're keeping with some folks who have some wonderful information to share with you. And so we have a segment today sponsored by Safeway. Did you know there was a poll taken and Safeway was actually the number one choice of stores grocery stores that people liked in the DMV? That says a lot about a store that has a historic legacy in our community, and it's still here serving us all over the city. So we're going to be talking to Dana Ward, the Senior Communications and Public Affairs Manager, who's going to talk to us about Safeway's 6th Kick Hunger campaign. Looking forward to talking to her. And a guest we have a little difficulty reaching, but I hope that he will be with us. And that's Dr. Ron Daniels, who is president of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century. He's going to talk about a conference that's coming up in Baltimore, the State of the Black World Conference. And we hope that he'll be able to join us because the conference is coming up, I believe, in a week. And we wanted to share that information with you. So we're still reaching out to him. But, hey, what's today? Tomorrow is April the 1st. We always look at April 15th as tax day, but there are some changes this year as usual. But at any rate, we're here to talk to us and give us some tax tips is Ben James Brown, Vice President and District Senior Manager for Retail Bank at Wells Fargo. Looking forward to having him back and sharing some great news with you. And live from Zambia in Africa, our very own Austin Cooper will be here to join in our interview with the founder and chief executive officer of Zambia International Trade and Investment Center. You know that the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, is actually traveling in Africa now. She's been to Ghana, may just be leaving Zambia and on her way to, I believe it's Tanzania, but Austin can correct me on that. But we were so excited to be able to get someone on the ground. Austin is there in Zambia, and so is our guest. So we're going to talk about the Vice President's visit and what you need to know about Zambia. We all know about these other countries that we go to a lot, but there's a place to visit, business opportunities. So we're looking forward to sharing that information with you on this program. So before we bring on our guests, let's watch our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. A heavily armed former student of the Covenant School, a private Christian campus in Nashville, shot through a locked door before killing 3 students and 3 staff members on Monday. The staff fatally wounded included a custodian, a substitute teacher, and the head of the school. The shooter, known as Audrey Hale, had planned extensively for the violence at the school on Burton Hills Boulevard. Police Chief John Drake commented saying, quote, there were maps drawn of the school, in detail surveillance, and entry points. The shooter, who was killed by the police on the second floor, had 2 assault rifles and a handgun. Ed Cooley was officially named the new head men's basketball coach of the Georgetown Hoyas on March 22nd inside Nolan Hall at the Thompson Athletic Center. He comes as a replacement for Patrick Ewing, who was relieved of his duties on March 9th after 6 years at the helm. Cooley comes to the Hilltop from Providence College, where he coached for 12 seasons, boasting an impressive 242-153 record, which includes 7 trips to the NCAA tournament. Cooley commented saying, quote, "I'm incredibly grateful for every opportunity that's ever been given. And all I'm asking of this community is to give us an opportunity to grow and develop with trust." Israel's political crisis escalated into uncharted territory on Monday as the country's largest trade union announced a historic strike shutting down transportation, universities, restaurants, and retailers in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's planned judicial overhaul. Israel's Histron-Drut trade union, which coordinated the strike, said that some of the government ministries, which include the country's 3 biggest cities, banks, and ports, and many other companies and agencies were on strike on Monday, and added that essential services such as hospitals and firefighters were to operate on a Saturday schedule. Massive crowds filled the streets of the Israel city Tel Aviv late Sunday night after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fired his defense minister over his opposition to planned a judicial overhaul.
What? That was not, can you hear me, Dana?
I can hear you now.
That was not the smoothest segue I've seen in my life. It's, I don't know. We went from
All right.
big international news to bam, there she is waiting for me. So anyway, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And you are the Senior Communications and Public Affairs Manager for Safeway. So I think this is the first time we've had a chance to sit with you on Win TV. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Your last segment was with Beth, who left us not too long ago. We deeply miss her. But
I'll let folks know that she moved on to another opportunity. She's not gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Want to misconstrue that. She moved on to a different opportunity. She's very much still here.
Right.
But we definitely miss her at Safeway.
Yeah, we will too. I actually saw her not too long ago, so it looks like life is treating her well. But welcome. We're glad to meet you and to talk with you, and to talk about the annual, this year's Kick Hunger campaign. Tell us what that is and what the goal, what Safeway's goal is for the year.
Yeah, so this is our 6th annual Nourishing Neighbors Kick Hunger campaign. And basically, what we're doing is we're raising money at our registers for our food bank partners here in the DMV. So Capital Area Food Bank and Maryland Food Bank. Most people, when they think of hunger, they think of the holidays, and they give money during the holiday season. And the reality of it is that it's actually the spring and summer where the food banks are hurting the most, because they're taken care of in the fall and the winter, because everyone's so ingrained that that's when they need food. That a program like Kick Hunger actually really helps them fill their pantries and their shelves for the summer and the spring. So that's why we're here, and we're super excited to bring that again for our 6th annual year at Safeway.
So how does it work? I mean, tell us how it works.
Sure. Super easy. So if you go into any Safeway and you just shop your regular order, once you get to checkout, you have the ability to write on the pin pad, donate $1, $2, $3, whatever you're comfortable with. Every dollar helps, but it just prompts you right on the pin pad as soon as you're at the register. So just look out when you're paying.
That's good because one, you make it easy. 2, like you said, every little bit helps. But we always say every lot of bit helps, because you're right. There's such a great need. We heard a lot about this, pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what happened during the pandemic, and it seems as though the need for food and hunger, the situation with hunger in the DC area, has not let up. It's even worse now than it has been, from what we've heard, in years. So there's a great need for this.
Yeah, people are just trying to make ends meet. It's been a crazy couple years. You saw people out of work that never would have thought they'd be out of work, just because of a virus. It's people had to close doors and whatnot, and now you're seeing the effects of that virus still affecting a lot of people, and there's definitely no let up on the hunger and security issue right now. And as a grocery store, our number one priority is to help people get access to food. And whether that's you're purchasing food at our stores, or we're helping you through our grants to the food banks, that we just want to bring people together around food.
I know this is probably a selfish question, but for folks that are now about to or have already prepared their taxes for this year, when they make those donations, are they tax deductible?
They absolutely are. So it right on the bottom of your receipt shows your tax deductible, and you just want to give that to your accountant, and then that will count to your 2023 taxes.
Wow, that's amazing. That's good. So is there any other aspect to this that we need to know about? I think I'm asking about a scavenger hunt or something.
We are. So anybody is welcome to come see us at Capitol Hill on April 19th. We will have a super fun scavenger hunt, and I know that the Informer is going to be a big part of that. So we're super excited about that. We will have Gary Clark from the Commanders there as well. He's kind of been our spokesperson for the last couple of years, and he's back to do it again. So we're excited to have him. And so if you want to see some people run through the aisles and get some food ready for Capital Area Food Bank, it's definitely the place to be. So that's where we'll be on the 19th.
Yeah, and if you're not the one running through the aisles, the people they certainly need cheerleaders. That's
Absolutely.
the role I play as the cheerleader, because it's really just fun to, as you said, to see that happen. And it's for a good cause. So in the end, you're exhaling, but you know that it's going to go and help lots of people. And so how did that idea come about, doing a scavenger hunt?
Honestly, that was Beth's idea.
Okay.
And it's such a great idea that we actually started doing it in our Acme stores as well up north. So it's a lot of fun, and it brings up a lot of excitement, just to be able to, hunger is a serious topic, right?
Yes, it is.
And sometimes you don't really you don't get to really have fun with it because it is a serious topic, and you don't want people to be, in need in any way. But this is just one way to make it a little bit lighthearted, have a little bit of fun with it, and also raise as much money as possible. So it's just a great idea. It's a lot of fun, and but kudos to Beth, because that was definitely all her.
Yeah, and I know people, not know, I guess, fault of maybe Safeways, I don't know, but, the food prices have definitely gone up. And so, that's why we're seeing a greater problem now. And I'm wondering if you could really talk a little bit about, maybe how Safeway has tried to address that issue in some way. I know this is one way you're doing it, but is there anything else you could share with us?
Yeah. So, we partner with a lot of great organizations throughout the year. So Kick Hunger, is definitely our spring one. We will also be raising for people with disabilities and veterans upcoming this year. As well as we'll do our annual Hunger Bucks campaign, which also raises money, which raises food for Capital Area and Maryland Food Bank, as well as other pantries. And then, you're also involved in Feast of Sharing. That definitely will be a part of our lives again this coming fall. And, for the customer too, we have lots of great digital offers. So if you download our Safeway for You app, you can definitely take advantage of that. We have a new Sincerely Health app that will help you also track your eating habits, as well as give you personal ideas for dietary reasons to keep everyone, nutritious. And we just, we'll have a lot of great new, marketing initiatives that will help bring people in the door, and give some savings opportunities to the customer.
I know I'm probably stepping beyond our interview as well, but I know people are. This is Denise's idea. Let's give a cash reward for people that bring back those baskets.
Right. I will absolutely take that right up, because that every little bit helps on that end too.
Yeah, that's a big topic of conversation. But And as we go into April, well, how long is the campaign, the Kick Hunger campaign, going to last?
Yeah,
When does it
so
start then?
it'll start tomorrow, April 1st, and
Okay.
it will run all the way through the 30th. So it'll be the full month long. Like I said, we have some fun on the 19th, right in the middle of the campaign. And, every little bit helps. So even if it's 50 cents when you're doing your weekly shopping, every little bit helps.
Is lastly, again off topic but still related, as we go into the Washington Informer will be recognizing Earth Day on April the 22nd. We have a big issue coming out on the 20th. I know sustainability has been a big thing with Safeway, but can you share, how you all might be observing that day during the midst of the Kick Hunger campaign?
Yeah, so I will personally be observing that day because it's my birthday. So
happy birthday,
little Earth child. But yeah, so we actually, hunger is actually a big part of our recipe for change. And when you think of environment and Earth Day, you probably don't think about hunger, but that's actually a big part of sustainability. So obviously that is one of the biggest ways that we're going to be doing that in the month of April. We're also going to be promoting our recycling centers at the store with our plastic bags. So you can bring your plastic bags in and recycle them through us so that they're not hitting that landfill. So we definitely invite everybody to do that. You find those bins right in our vestibules. And so we'll also be doing, little cleanup day sponsorships throughout the area as well.
Wonderful. Well, Dana, thank you so much for being with us again. Just one last pitch you want to make for the Kick Hunger campaign, please do so. I'd rather end on that note. So what should we do?
Yeah. So come on into Safeway, buy your regular groceries, stop by your cashier, ask them about Kick Hunger. And if you go to self-checkout, just do it right on the pin pad. Any little bit helps. And, again, if you're in the capital area on April 19th, come see us. We'll have some great celebrities running through the aisles and trying to raise money for Capital Area Food Bank.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
I'll see you.
Bye-bye.
On that day. All righty.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So we're going to move forward. We're going to go on and talk now with Ben James Brown, the district manager of Wells Fargo, about those taxes. Just got ours done last night. I probably wish I had talked to Ben before I went in and sat down with the folks, but it's all done. What did I do wrong? What did I do right?
No, I think you did everything right. We just wanted to double check on some things for you, Denise, but
okay,
I'm glad you got it done.
Yeah, we did. So welcome to WIN TV again. And boy, talking about Earth Day, I love those beautiful plants behind you. Jeez.
Oh, thank you. Really
nice.
I was terrible, had terrible luck with plants up until COVID, and developed the green thumb. So they're my babies.
Yeah, they're very happy. I can tell.
Absolutely.
So make us happy. Tell us what is, let's talk taxes. First of all, tell us about your new role at Wells Fargo. I understand you have a little bit of an announcement for us.
Well, I did. I've been a district manager for the bank for 12 years now, and I've been with the company for 22. I recently took on the role of the vice president and lead focus communities program manager for financial health. That's a lot, right? In that role, under our foundation, I'll be responsible for financial health initiatives for the bank. My concentration will really be on young adults, LGBTQ+, our HBCUs across the nation to enrich financial literacy activation and programmatic approaches for organizations that we fund and support. I'm super excited about that change for me specifically because I've done a lot of work in the community. I've interviewed with you before with the work that I've done with the 100 Black Men, and this just helps put all of that into activation with providing resources to folks who have lacked those resources in the past. And so super excited about the change.
So, I always go off script. I know Chevry loves to send, a script out for us to go by, and then something triggers in my head another question. So, and I always want to let the guests know if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. I mean, it's my fault. But when you talk about young people and banking, right, or financial literacy, with what's going on with the banks right now, what is the message? Because, some folks are a little leery about putting their money in banks
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that we need to hear some messaging that makes people know that either their investments are safe or what they need to be doing.
Absolutely. I think that the FDIC has done a really great job at updating their information. You can go to FDIC's website around coverage for you and your deposits that you have. Banks are safe. A long time ago, I had a customer who came in, and when you think about Wells Fargo and our strategy to help strengthen customers' financial well-being, we had a customer came in and he had a child that was crying on his shoulder, and I talked with him about a savings account option for a child. And this child hadn't even turned 3 yet, and he said, "Well, I really don't think I have time to talk about that right now." And I wanted to make sure that that was really important, that budgeting was important, as that child is going to turn from 3 to 18. Like my son just turned 18 last month,
Yeah.
in a heartbeat. And you're going to need that money for his college tuition, for cars and whatnot. And so, how are you disciplining yourself to save? And it started with just $25 a pay period that he put into the savings account. That 25 turned to 50, turned into $100. And I remember Diego was his son. He called me back in 2018 to let me know he bought his first car cash. He didn't get a loan.
Wow.
He didn't finance it. He bought that car cash and had $60,000 put away for college. This wasn't, scholarships that he had applied for, but it came from a simple discipline of putting away $25 a pay period for that parent. And so when you think about the role of banks, we want to make sure that we are giving guidance and advice to our customers, that we're helping them succeed financially. Stories like that. We have tons other of folks who have come into the bank and sat down with our bankers here at Wells Fargo, where we've been able to help those folks succeed financially. And so, to that question, I would welcome customers, to come into your local bank and ask, about ways in which they can help discipline themselves better in their financial journey.
Well, kudos for you for doing that. I mean, it warms my heart to know that you just thought and your customer said, okay, let me do it, because that is a real testimony to what parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whole bunch of folks could do,
Absolutely.
to help our children get on their feet. But anyway, we're here to talk about taxes, which is, how do we keep that money out of Uncle Sam's hands and into our own? So first, let's start with the question about filing taxes electronically. Should we be doing that?
Absolutely. IRS e-file is available to all taxpayers, and many can e-file their individual tax returns for free. I know last year nearly 100 million taxpayers, I believe, opted out for the safest and fastest and easiest way to submit their taxes. And so if you want to get it done easily, file with the e-file. And there are several forms that our consumers can use to file where they're not getting charged for it.
And I want to back up because, as I said in the intro of the show, we always think April 15th. But this year, what is the tax deadline? Is it the 17th?
It's the 18th.
18th. Okay.
Yeah, we've had tons of stuff happen this year. And because of that, we got a slight break and extension. So that would be April 18th.
Right. And then, so when you're filing your taxes, it's a lot of numbers, but there's some
Mhm.
very, very, very important numbers, and they include what?
Well, you want to check identification numbers, usually social security numbers for each person that's listed. This includes you, your spouse, your dependents, people that are listed in relations for claims. So the child care credit, I believe, or the earned income tax credit. If you miss any of that information, or it's incorrect or illegible, you won't be able, it will be returned. And so to avoid that from happening, you want to make sure that you check those numbers a couple of times before you go in and file.
And what if you find out at the end, you are going to end up owing Uncle Sam? What should you do?
Well, and the thing that I would suggest, and I tell folks this all the time when they come into the bank, you want to have a really good tax advisor. And so a CPA, a tax advisor, you want to make sure that you talk with them about ways in which to increase what you're going to get back and or to lessen what you're going to owe, at the end of the day. To the point that I made before about checking those figures, it can reduce your tax refund if those figures aren't correct. And so you definitely want to make sure. And a lot of those electronic tools that we have to file your taxes, they'll give you some guidance on what you should put in. And at the very end, before you submit, we'll go through a summary of what you've done to ensure that those things are done correctly the first time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And are there some strategies that you can share with us to help us to reduce our tax liability? It may not have helped us, of course, now for 2022, but we're still early in the year. For next year. So what are some strategies you think we need to begin to incorporate?
I think one of the best strategies, a lot of folks still don't contribute to IRAs, whether it's traditional or it's a Roth IRA. And so just knowing that IRAs offer key advantages to tax deferred growth, meaning you won't pay taxes on your untaxed earnings or contributions until you reach a certain age. And for most, that distribution starts at the age of 73. If you're doing a Roth IRA, may yield upfront tax breaks, but both the Roth IRA and that will give you an opportunity to maximize on your contribution and lessen, what you're going to owe at the end of the day.
So for those who don't know what an IRA is or a Roth IRA, could you define those two instruments for us?
Yeah, and the definition really is to offer key advantages for tax deferred growth. That's the book, definition. So what that means is that you won't pay taxes on your untaxed earnings. And so when you get your paycheck and you before they take the taxes out on that sum, what you are contributing does not get taxed.
So for a person like myself, I mean, I was self-employed for a long time. And then finally, the company that I worked for and owned decided to make me an employee. So they're taking out taxes. But very early on, I got an IRA because I was concerned. This is a retirement account, right? Yeah. So you're really putting money away for you to hopefully live off of, once you get to the point of retirement. And so, I'm glad that I did. I'm like that person that put that $25 in. Mine was only $25, that I would put in maybe once a month. I mean, it wasn't much, but, now I have a little bit of something, in addition to whenever my Social Security kicks in, to live off of when I decide to finally retire. And so, go ahead.
Keep in mind that your contribution for both is $6,000 for 2022, this tax year, but that is increasing to $6,500 in 23. And you can contribute an additional $1,000 if you are 50 or older.
Okay. All right. Well, I might need to talk to you a little bit more about that. And I think that for those who have those kinds of questions, I mean, can they go into a Wells Fargo, any bank, and get guidance on that?
Absolutely. So because we do offer IRAs for our consumers who come in. And again, if you don't have a tax advisor or you haven't sat down when going through your taxes and you have someone filing for you, it's important to also ask them for that guidance as they are licensed to give that advice. You had also asked, about earlier, you had asked, well, I want to make sure that all my figures are right. And am I getting, the max that I can? That tax preparer, it will give you all that information. And when they do give you that information and they file your taxes for you, you want to make sure that they sign your taxes, as well as their prepared tax identification number on your taxes so that it doesn't cause for any delays as well.
Okay. So let me ask you, have there been any changes to the tax law that we need to consider?
There have been a ton of changes,
Hmm.
and because I'm not a licensed tax preparer,
Right,
I
right,
want to
right.
make sure that you all are getting accurate information. And so, again, my guidance would be to talk to that tax preparer.
Okay. All right. So what other tips can you give us before we go? We just want to, make sure that when folks file those taxes, one, that they get them done before April the 18th.
Mhm.
There's the opportunity to file an extension, right? If they
There is.
aren't going to meet that deadline.
There is. So let me give you a couple of other tips. We want to make sure that you are sending this, if you are filing manually, to the right address. So if you're mailing a return in, you want to find the right address on www.irs.gov. And then if you're going to pay electronically, electronic payments, they're convenient, they're safe. I know folks with digital, a lot of folks, fear that, and, they want to do the cashier's checks and whatnot, but pay electronically, get it out of the way. You can authorize electronic funds withdrawals from your credit card or from your debit card. Also, follow instructions when mailing a payment in. So people sending a payment should make the check payable to the United States Treasury and should enclose it, but not attach it to the tax return form, and I believe it's the 1040V. And so, or your payment vouchers if you get that in the mail. So the check should include your Social Security number, or the person listed on your tax returns, the date, time, telephone number, the tax year, and the type that a form that's going to be filed. Lastly, you talked about the deadline of April 18th. You should either file the return or request an extension by that time. Remember, an extension of time filed is not an extension of time to pay. So you still have to pay Uncle Sam on that date or whatever, that allocation is going to be for you. Visit irs.gov for forms, the publications, and helpful information and tips for any tax subjects. They're all going to be available on that website.
And the last thing I think I want to ask you, Ben James, is, there are so many scams out here right now, so many, and they really do seem like they target, older people.
Yeah.
But are you aware, for example, will IRS actually call your house, or, how do they communicate with you if you are, if they need to communicate with you, and how do you know whether it's them or somebody
You,
else?
and you know what I do love, Denise, about the IRS's website is they give you scenarios for scams.
Okay.
And so I would implore everyone to visit the website to take a look at that. As well as when you do have a question, you can do this at your local bank as well. Bring in the letter or bring in what that concern is, and we can help guide you on channels that you can leverage as a resource so that you stay safe and you have peace of mind that you are being handled with the right individual.
Right. I'm beginning to say now, way on the side of caution these days, because so many people are trying to find ways to get into our pockets, even with, banking scams, how they are able to get into your bank accounts and
Yeah.
everything. And sometimes we are not really paying the attention that we need to pay, and we sort of open the door for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you're talking with someone on the phone and they're giving you information, you want to pause, collect that telephone number so that you have it. Sometimes it's wise to Google that number to see if that agency really exists. But come into the bank, and again, we're happy to help with giving you peace of mind that you are with the right individual, that you are following the right path and channel. And visit the irs.gov, which will give you some helpful tips on how to avoid those scams as well in the future.
Well, thank you for being with us today and for sharing this information. And congratulations on your much broader position. I'm glad that you're here with us to share all of this great news. And we look forward to having you back sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okie doke. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, let me bring.
All right. I'm sorry for pausing like that. You know how it is when you're working in your office and you have someone at your front door. But so Sherry's trying to do that. But we are moving on to our next guest. Oh, Dr. Daniels is here, I think. And so we're going to bring him on in just a few minutes and try to start this conversation. You know, we're here at the office and the UPS people are very impatient. There you are, Dr. Daniels. I'm glad to see you. You there? We can't hear you. Are you there? He's here, but I can't hear him. Can you talk to me, Dr. Daniels?
He's not muted. I'm gonna kick him out. Let him join again.
Okay. All righty. Yeah, we can't hear you, so we're trying to get you in. All right. So yeah. So anyway, you don't hear me? Okay. I'm going to keep talking and maybe someone can hear me. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We are having a moment. And that's what happens with live TV. So this makes the conversation exciting. I am really glad that we got that information and I hope it is helpful to you. And now is, I think we have Dr. Ron Daniels. Dr. Daniels, are you there?
I'm gonna kick him all the way out. Tell him to read.
All right, Dr. Daniels, you're gonna have to go out and come back in again, okay? All right. So anyway, moving on. This is the ad lib part. You know, I wish I had some jokes to tell, but I don't. But I do. Oh yeah, boy, Sherry. You know, can you believe it? Well, you know, it's interesting how we in the news media tell stories, right? And so all last week we were saying that former President Donald Trump was going to be indicted. When he made the announcement, said he was going to be indicted. Said that it was going to happen Tuesday, I believe it was a week ago. I don't know. My days are gotten away from me now. But yet, yesterday when he was indicted, it was like, oh no, it really happened. But yeah, it really happened. I think most of us anticipated that it would happen. What we were wondering is what was going to be the reaction to the indictment. Which is why the district capital, U.S. Capitol here in the District of Columbia, is fenced up, and parts of New York are fenced up, and people are hoping that there won't be any violence. But clearly, he is asking his supporters to respond in the way that he's encouraging them to respond, which is not in a nonviolent way. So we'll have to see what happens. It's interesting news, but I think there's so much more news we can talk about. And one will be the state of the Black world. Dr. Daniels, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Maybe he needs to cut his volume up because I can hear him, but he can't hear me. And I know he's getting a bit frustrated. So we're going to try one more time. And yet we have our guests from Zambia. We have Austin Cooper and Dr. Kubalande, who are going to, oh, there you all are. How are you?
How are you?
Good, Austin. Thank you so much. And Dr. Kubalande, how are you?
I'm good, Denise. How are you doing?
I am so well. Wish I was where you are, but you know, I feel like we're in the room together, so it's all good. It's all good.
This is the place to be now. Your vice president is here.
I know she is. We got streets locked down and kids dancing and celebrating, and you all are trying to take care of business, right?
There we are. There we are.
And actually, Denise, this is the vice president's final stop on her 3-country tour. She started out the week in Ghana.
Okay.
And then she left Dar es Salaam, Tanzania this morning. and arrived here in Lusaka at about 1 p.m. 1 p.m. local time. So she's here for about 24 hours before beginning her journey back to Washington.
So share with tell us what time is it there, first of all?
It is 6:12 p.m. So we're 6 hours ahead.
Wonderful. Okay.
No,
Yeah,
6:44 p.m.
exactly. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I give or take a few minutes. It depends on the
Yeah.
clock. So, so Austin, if you would just start a little bit, and I would like for you to formally introduce Dr. Let me make sure I'm saying it right. Kopolande?
That's correct.
That's correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us why you're there and why and about the vice president's journey. We have done, Stacey Brown did a story which we posted yesterday just about the overall visit and the financial commitment that the United States is making. But give us a little intro as to why you were there. And then if you don't mind actually officially introducing Dr. Kopolande, I'd appreciate it.
Perfect.
Well,
You got it.
well, good to see you. Good to see you, Denise. Good to see you, Sebastian.
Yeah,
Always, Denise.
that's
And,
correct.
Sebastian and I go back about I'm aging myself at least 20 years, right? Right, Sebastian. We met in Washington, D.C., but I arrived, in answer to your question, Denise, I arrived here in Lusaka on Wednesday afternoon. Long journey, but I finally made it here safely. And I'm with one of my clients, the Pan Africa Business Forum, which is a consortium of small, medium, and large-sized businesses across Africa and indeed around the world. Specifically, I'm here because, as you know, the president announced his intent to travel to Washington, travel to Africa at some point in 2023, and the government of Zambia is interested in the president making Zambia one of his stops when he departs the U.S. later this year. But that is my primary reason for being here.
Okay.
And the timing just happened to coincide with the vice president's visit.
And wonderful, and with our show too, with Win TV, and that's why we're so
Absolutely.
excited to have you. So,
Perfect timing.
yeah. So tell us about Dr. Kopolande, Sebastian Kopolande. Tell us. a
Yeah,
little
well,
bit
I
about
mean, I have had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Kopolande, as I just said, for close to 20, perhaps 25 years. I consider him to be a dear friend. I think we met at an event with the president of Zambia in Washington years ago. We have stayed in touch over the years. He is currently the president of the CEO of the Zambian International Investment Center. He's again the CEO. But Sebastian had a long, distinguished history in Zambia. He has served as a senior advisor to several presidents, and he was also a member of the parliament for a number of years. So he's
Wow.
extremely knowledgeable on the history of Zambia, on the politics of Zambia, and a true Africanist at heart. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sebastian. Did I leave anything out, my brother?
Well, you got it well in summary. Yep. Went to school a bit in Washington, D.C. Spent some time in D.C. at Georgetown.
Nice.
Right, I'd forgotten that.
So, Dr. Kopolande, what is your expectation, or what do you think should be the result of this visit? I mean, it's a big visit for the U.S. Vice President, who happens to be a woman, to come, and Black American, to come to represent the U.S. in Zambia. But it's more than just a visit. What's the expectation of this visit?
Well, I think, as you put it, it's more than just a visit. For Vice President Kamala Harris, I think this is, in a sense, a homecoming. She was here as a little girl, around the age of 5. She was in Zambia with her grandfather, who was a civil servant in the immediate post-independence government. So she's retracing part of our roots, one would say, but really the visit by the Vice President should help to strengthen the US-Zambia relations, as well as the relation between the United States and the rest of Africa. We expect and we hope, from my selfish point of view, that this trip may lead into increased foreign direct investment into Zambia and increased trade between Zambia and the United States. I also would hope that there will be a much better understanding by the American government of the issues that impact Africa and the issues that Africa really is concerned about. And with that understanding, I believe that it will help improve the bilateral relations, because I think and pray that she will take time to listen to what our President Hakainde Hichilema will outline to her in as far as the issues that concern our people are, so that there can be a much better focus in terms of where the relations should be targeting.
Can you be a little bit more specific with us, though? What are some of those issues that you would hope that the U.S. government would assist in the Zambian people and your organization to address? Specifically, what are those issues?
Well, I think the key issues in any relationship really is to understand each other's concerns. For us in Zambia, and I think the rest of Africa, our big problem, our big issue is the economic issue. Mm. And I think that a clear understanding of the importance, the critical importance of our economic situation is a great challenge to us, and it should be able to open up areas for the United States to know where to go. For instance, while we are very, very thankful about a very practical intervention that the American people did with regards to HIV/AIDS response, was on the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR. That was a practical intervention which helped our country and indeed a number of other African countries. Would like to see that the United States works now on building relations with the people of Zambia and not focusing on relations with individuals. Remember, we are a mature democratic country of Africa. Individuals will leave office. We have, since 1991, we have changed governments several times. We have held mature, credible, democratic elections here. And people have been shown the door by the Zambian people, so that our focus must be on responding to the needs of the people, so that the friendship is built not between individuals, but between two countries, between peoples of the two countries. So we would like to see an increase in FDI, an increase in trade. Would like to see that there is a realignment of the support from what I would call the software of life to the hardware of life. We want to see intervention support in building our infrastructure. Would like to see support in building our hospitals, our schools. The biggest important thing for our people is that our people need to be fed, to be kept healthy, and to be educated for us to prepare our future for the development of of not only the country but the continent as well. This is why maybe I should add here quickly that this is the reason we have formed an organization called.
I think it's I think he's frozen on us. And that's one of the key areas too, Austin, is I guess internet connections. I mean, Africa is actually ahead of the United States in some ways and still lacking in others. Before we go any further, tell us specifically where Zambia is located on the continent.
Zambia is in southern central Africa. It's in the general region of Botswana, Mozambique, the Congo, in that general area. Not quite as south as South Africa, Denise, but southern Central Africa would probably be the best way that I could describe where Zambia is. You know, actually, Zambia next year will be celebrating its 60th year of independence, and in fact, that was a you know, when the vice president arrived today. It's rather late now, but she has you know, one of her stops after she left her hotel was to go to the gravesite of the founding father, President Gwanda of Zambia, and paid her respects by laying a wreath at his grave.
That's great. That's great. You know, as you know, and Dr. Copolande knows, I'm going to call you Sebastian, okay?
That's fine. That's fine.
Good. I try to be formal. You know, I respect people that have doctor in front of their name, but you know, because I keep tripping over it, I want to make it easier, just for me. But you know, anyway. But you know, we here at the Washington Informer are really trying to do our job to sort of build relationships, to tell stories to our viewers and our readers about, you know, African countries and the opportunities that are there, not only for tourism, but business opportunities. And so from your perspective, Sebastian, what are those business opportunities that African Americans could, you know, maybe explore? And how do you think, what would be best ways to even build bridges between African Americans and Zambians, or just Africans on the continent?
There are several such opportunities, not only in Zambia, but in the rest of Africa. I know that a good number of African Americans are in all the sectors of business activity. I can assure you here there are opportunities in retail business, in media, TV, radio. So I'd like to invite you to come and set up your TV studio here. Areas in healthcare, in construction, there are opportunities. There are opportunities in areas of technology, food and beverage, beauty and personal care. You know, there are so many for SMEs where African Americans can come in and partner with Zambians in the that's one to do agriculture. In Zambia, for instance, we've got the best of the land, the best of the climate. I'm sure Austin is enjoying himself here. The weather is air conditioned everywhere you go. So, yeah. So
that sounds. And Justin, do you want to jump in with a question? I don't want to.
No. So, Sebastian, you have offered yourself up as a public servant to the people of Zambia on several occasions. You are no longer a public official, but sir, what do you miss about being a public servant? Do you miss it at all? And what did you find most gratifying during your years of being a member of parliament?
Well, before being a member of parliament, I was a presidential advisor, and it was great to see myself having impact on the policy direction of the country. But as a parliamentarian, a lawmaker, I can tell you I was a prolific debater. I'll take the floor and just turn the house upside down. I miss that. I enjoyed moving private members' motions. For example, I moved a motion urging the government to start distributing sanitary pads to the girls in schools. It is now being done as a result of that. So I miss having that impact. I miss interrogating the executive on a number of issues when they bring international agreements, when they bring the budget, because I had to make sure that our national resources are being appropriately applied to the most need areas of our people. So I really do miss that. I think being a parliamentary, I also had the opportunity to serve as Zambia's representative to the Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific Joint Parliamentary Assembly with the European Union in Brussels. So every now and then I was in Brussels, and the debate was always as stimulating as it was at home. But you know, debating with Europe, it was fun. I do miss that. I do miss having impact on what's going on. It's not the same today. Sometimes it can be frustrating watching from the terraces. Nonetheless, you know, that's why they say once a politician, always a politician. But I'm in retirement now, temporarily, until further notice.
Okay, that sounds like breaking news right there. You know, one of the things that we think about also on this side, it relates to the U.S. Vice President visiting Africa, is it seems to be there's this race, you know, for who's going to do the most, actually and I don't know what the impact of it is, but, you know, you've got China, you've got the U.S., and, you know, Russia might be in there somewhere. I'm not sure what that role is. And so from, you know, internally speaking, and I don't know how you answer this question, but I know that you want partners from around the world, anybody that can help assist as the country grows. You will probably, I guess, accept help. But tell me your perspective on those three entities and what it means to the people there in the country to have, you know, these three, quote, superpowers battling over who's going to, I don't want to say take over, but, you know, I don't know. What does it feel like on your side?
Well, for us, really, they can fight as much as they want. We run our affairs, and we want to run our own affairs. They can fight as much as they want, but you see, this is why our founding fathers came up with the movement called Non-Aligned Movement. The Non-Aligned Movement essentially chose that during that Cold War period, they should remain independent to associate with anybody that they wanted to associate with. So really for us, we are comfortable with anybody. We believe we are partners with the United States. We are development partners with the People's Republic of China. And we can point at a lot of things that the People's Republic of China have done. I mean, the democracy summit just ended yesterday, I think. Now, where the summit was being held was built by the Chinese, okay? We have football stadiums, 2 large football stadiums built by the Chinese. We have the Tazara Railway built by the Chinese. We have the Levi Mwanawasa Hospital built by the Chinese. There are so many. From Russia, we get every year a lot of scholarships that are given to Zambian students that go to study in Russia on Russian government scholarships, just like we get Chinese government scholarships for our students to study in the People's Republic of China. So really, for us, we want to be friends with everybody. Whoever wants to be a friend with us, you see, as long as they give us the latitude, the freedom to associate with whoever we want to associate with.
But what happens, Sebastian, if you have to take sides? And so with this war in Ukraine, for example, and the American government says, you know, despite whatever Russia has done, you should not take their side, or they are expecting you to do something policy-wise to show that you may or may not be supporting that, or are you just silent on it? How does that work?
Why should we take our sides? There are two people fighting. What business of mine is it to take sides? I stay away.
Okay, all right. Well, that answers that.
I stay away out of other people's business. Sorry, can I say, there is a man fighting with another man. My job is to stop the fight. It's not to say who is right and who is wrong. Who should I join to fight against the other one? It's their fight. It's their business, none of mine.
Okay.
So I think really here is a matter of being fair to Africa. It's a matter of being fair to all these countries. Why do you want to push a country to be on your side? What in the end is the intention?
Well,
what in the end is the intention?
This opens the door for another conversation I hope we can have one day when WIN TV is in Zambia, and we can talk some more about it. But I get your point. You know, it's part of what we heard, I think, at a press conference before the vice president came. And that was part of the conversation. And we were just trying to figure out what was the expectation of the American government. But I see what your position is. And we actually have run out of time, Austin. Is there anything you wanted to do to close out or say?
No, I would just thank you, Denise, for this opportunity. Thank you, Sebastian, for adjusting your schedule. I have been invited to dinner at Sebastian's home on Sunday. So Sebastian, I respectfully ask that we add office space for Denise and Chevry in Lusaka to our meeting agenda.
we should connect with them online so they can join the dinner.
I know it's going to be great. I know it's going to be great. Yeah. Well, I do too want to thank both of you all for taking time to do this. I know you all have had busy schedules, just generally speaking, but also, you know, traveling and being host for this very important guest in the country. So I appreciate the fact that you could take some time to talk to us, and I wish you a great weekend.
Thanks, Denise. Take care.
Thank you, Denise. I want to be your friend, and I want to be Austin's friend.
Absolutely. Done.
Done.
I shouldn't choose between you two. No.
All right. Thank you so much.
All righty. Thanks.
All righty. Well, you know, that's what I like about WIN TV. We can go any place in the world, right here from our little humble studio on Martin Luther King Avenue. And we're glad when we can open our door to guests from around the country and talk about some issues. I mean, we could have done a whole show on this, and we will consider that as we move forward, because we are trying to find ways through WIN TV to broaden to connect the African diaspora with African Americans here and Africans around the globe. So we hope you enjoyed that segment. I'm going to sign off now, or actually, I think I'm going to bring Sam Collins on because we're over time, but that only means because we have what we call WIN TV overtime. So Sam, welcome.
Peace, Denise. Happy Friday. How are you?
I'm good. There's a little static or something coming from your side.
Is there?
Um, yeah. But at any rate, who are we expecting today?
We are expecting Patrice Salton. She is the executive director of the DC Justice Lab. We have quite a bit to talk about this afternoon. First, we're going to talk about the congressional hearing that took place on Thursday, or Wednesday rather, where Chairman Mendelson, Councilmember Allen, Chief Financial Officer Glenn Lee, and the DC Union Chief Pemberton spoke before Congress. And we're also going to talk about the revised Criminal Code Act. And the reason why we're talking about both is because controversy around the latter led to what happened on Wednesday. So there's quite a bit to talk about. We know that residents, especially east of the river, want to know more about the revised Criminal Code Act. And there's always a lot of concern about DC statehood and about infringement on our local laws. So I'm very happy to have Patrice Salton come on. This segment has been weeks in the making. And if you can't tell, I'm very excited.
No, I can, and I'm excited that you are. I just wish we could figure out where that static is coming from that's affecting your sound.
Okay.
But I actually, Sam, I went to the Oversight Committee, the House Oversight Committee the other day. It was one of those things that I would have done, my father would have done, and looked at the makeup of the committee from the Republican side and the Democratic side. And I think Washingtonians, which you and I can talk about, need to see the people who are making the decisions or about now as they want to go deeper into the affairs of the District of Columbia, which we haven't seen in years. I mean, boy, is there something, I don't know what it is that's vibrating. Yeah, shall we say it might be your speaker or your mic, but we're getting quite a bit of feedback on this side.
Okay.
So,
as far as your point about the racial makeup of the committee, what I will say is on the GOP side, it was mostly white. We had Bobart out of Colorado. As far as the Democratic side, we had
and Comer, who is the chair, right, of the committee?
Comer.
Yeah, out of Kentucky. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was very aggressive, very aggressive, and you could tell. Not only are they not from DC, but they couldn't even keep up with what happened with the revised Criminal Code Act, especially Lauren Boebert. At some points, she spoke about the legislation as if it had passed, when in fact it didn't, because the same Republicans had put up the disapproval resolution. And we saw a lot of topics come up as far as Congress's relationship with Ward 6. For those who are not aware, Charles Allen is the Ward 6 council member, and his jurisdiction includes Capitol Hill. So they brought up what happened to Rand Paul's staffer not too long ago when the returning citizen assaulted him. And they brought up carjackings, of course, and just other things happening in Capitol Hill. There was a question of whether Charles Allen is reaching out to congressional staffers or is really dialoguing with them. At one point in time, there was questions about DC's financial health, the status of the school system. Hold on one second.
Sam, we may have to pull you out and bring you back in. Have you figured out what that's coming from?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to get some headphones real quick.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring your other guest in for Denise.
Okay, and your other guest is going to come in. So while you're going to get the headphones, go out, come back, or if you have the headphones, she's here? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's bring her in. Hi, Patrice.
Hi, glad to be here. How are you?
Oh, great. I'm doing fine. Sam and I he was just laying the land of what the conversation's going to be, and going to get some headphones because we're getting a lot of feedback from him. But thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking to Sam more. I'd love to just share, if I could, before we even get there, that I think this what's playing out now on Capitol Hill is a really good illustration of why it's so important to invest in Black press. There has been so much misinformation around not only the impact of what the revised code would do, but what the bill even means, how it even functions. And it's been really valuable to have the Washington Informer talking to the people who actually worked on this and reading it for themselves and studying it closely, instead of having to rely only on, our local and international papers that now have no Black people on their editorial boards, and no way of being able to tell these stories through the lens of the people who are going to be affected by these laws. So thanks for all that you're doing.
Yeah, there's still my pleasure, and I'm glad that we're blessed to have Sam with us. Who's so focused on this. We're a small paper, but we recognize the issues that impact our community. It's good to have those fearless reporters like Sam and a couple others we have to do that, because there are a lot of people who are still looking at that. They don't know much about this bill. And they are still being very critical of the mayor and the council for sending it up there, recognizing what it would cause. But at this point, I think whatever we're going to send up right now, just because of the makeup of the Congress and the attitudes that they have about the District of Columbia, is going to be a fight all the way. And so this is just, it may give some food for them to, or some, what do you call it? Some fire to put on the flame, or gas to put on the fire, whatever the term is. But, to get them started. But again, if they're not reading the bill and don't know, just basing it off of their own personal experiences with the district, then we might need to look at what's happening in their jurisdictions.
Yeah. I think the other jurisdictions that are experiencing something similar include places like Jackson, Mississippi and St. Louis, Missouri, where we have other places that have either a majority Black or plurality Black electorate and are being told that they can't self-govern. And when we see patterns like that, I think we should call out the fact that this is not about the substance of the changes in law as much as it is about discriminating against people who want to make their own laws and live under their own decision-making authority.
Right. Well, Sam is back.
Let's see. How am I sounding?
The same.
No feedback.
Little feedback, huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. And Sherry said it's the wire. But I think Patrice will be doing most of the talking. Let's try to keep it going, Sam.
No doubt. Well, Patrice, Wednesday morning we had an opportunity to gather in a park not too far from on the Rayburn building. If you could just paint a picture, of what happened out there. There's, quite a lot of grassroots organizing going on that people outside of DC don't know about.
Yeah, so the event that you're referencing was hosted by a coalition called Hands Off DC, which includes not only people who understand that there are better approaches to public safety than those that we've been seeing over the last 30 years in a really pronounced and punitive way, but also those who care about our right to self-determination and who understand that the way that Congress treats the District of Columbia in comparison to the way other territories that were not predominated by Black people for many, many years is really the result of direct racial animus. It's not a coincidence. They have been explicit for centuries that this is what is motivating their interference in our local affairs. And although it was very ugly, I think there was something valuable in having congressmen and women say out loud things that were so overtly racist on Wednesday so that people could understand that that is what is driving this effort to disapprove of DC's rulemaking authority and not an actual debate of ideas.
Definitely, and I think that from my vantage point, weeks earlier when the revised criminal code act was on the chopping block, that parallel to some people wasn't as overt. Some people out of concern about violent crime might have not seen that. How has it been, in your role, just organizing and even being with the DC Justice Lab, helping people see the bigger picture as it relates to public safety and how to better tackle public safety through racial equity in our laws?
Yeah, what's been difficult about the revised criminal code in particular is that this project wasn't a racial equity or decarceration project, as you know. This was about writing out the laws in a way that people could understand them and enforce them, because our laws are so poorly written and so out of sync with one another. And it's not unlike what the vast majority of states did 50 years ago. I think we did a much better job in DC than what was done in the early 60s, but the idea behind it, codifying norms, making sure we have a statute that governs things like the definition of self-defense, was a really important undertaking. When we polled district voters with a description of what the project was and an accurate recitation of how this new law would work, they overwhelmingly supported it. And what we learned in the last 6 months is that when you have a lot of information that is incorrect, flooding our conventional and social media, it really changes the way people analyze their own position on a subject. We talked about people who live east of the river in Washington, D.C., and their concerns about violent crime. And those who are reading the Washington Post, which wrote something to the effect of, will now have a 4-year penalty for violent offenses, which is wholly untrue. No basis in fact, can read the bill and tell that that is completely false, had this false impression that that's what the bill did. And then concern grew about what that would mean for public safety. And so to have 2 separate conversations about what the bill actually even in fact does and what it means to reduce sentences and why that doesn't make people unsafe is really hard to do all at one time. And there was, I think, an unfairness generated by our over-reliance on white press and a need for avenues to tell our own stories, to shape our own narratives around what people are actually experiencing, what people actually think, and what the law actually is.
So if we can just touch on murder and carjacking, seeing as those were 2 of the most talked about aspects of the bill. And I don't want to butcher my understanding of it, but in the way that we spoke about it, if I recall correctly, the revised criminal code act gave more latitude to prosecutors or it better aligned the different degrees of offenses. So it took into account several circumstances for each particular defendant, if I'm saying that correctly. But I do want to give you the floor in terms of speaking about what changed about the sentencing requirements for carjacking and murder in the revised criminal code act.
Yeah, thank you for giving me some latitude to explain that in a little bit more detail, because when people try to explain how the law works in a tweet, oftentimes there are things I've seen that are incorrect or the nuance is missing in a way that's really important. When you go about rewriting an entire criminal code, the first step of that was figuring out how all of the offenses and defenses and definitions should read. Once there were gradations, meaning degrees of each offense put in, before deciding what the maximum penalty was going to be for each of those offenses, the job of the commission and its advisors, which include the U.S. Attorney, Public Defender Service, the Office of the Attorney General, legal scholars, and others, was to put those offenses in order, to rank order them, to ensure that the ordinal ranking made sense. So starting at the very top, the most serious offense is, of course, the taking of a human life. And below that, we rank ordered things all the way down to the least serious community harm. And when I say we, I'm talking about my former role as a senior attorney advisor to the commission and not my role running DC Justice Lab, which has a very different objective, right? Which is racial justice and decarceration project. So once they're all in order, the lines needed to be drawn for the classifications of offenses. We don't have classes of felonies and classes of misdemeanors in DC. So deciding there would be 9 classes of felonies, 5 classes of misdemeanors was the next step in that process. And then finally, assigning a maximum penalty for each of those classifications had to happen. So at the very top, for those most serious offenses, the taking of human life, the penalty is a de facto life sentence. If you look at how long people who are arrested in DC live on average, the maximum sentence would be them spending their entire life in prison. So when you set the penalty for something that you're very upset about in the moment higher than murder, it throws out of whack this system, this rank ordering that we have in place, which is not just helpful to people who are accused of crimes, it's helpful to prosecutors who need to be able to say, hey, plead down to something that was a lesser included offense. So if we take, for example, the recommendations that the mayor made to change this bill, she would punish an unarmed burglary more severely than murder. And that causes a lot of problems. But when you hear just the soundbite that, hey, this person wants higher sentences for burglary, to a lot of people's ear, that lands as this person cares about burglary and I care about burglary too, and that's the direction that we should follow. And so that's the narrative that's been really difficult to unravel and repair, is this notion that putting a maximum penalty on the books is the way that we show we care about a thing, when those maximum penalties aren't going to be used anyway. Our judges are not going to punish the taking of a car more severely than the taking of a human life. And when we suggest to victims of crime that you're going to get the same amount of time, and then they come to court and their expectations don't meet reality, it leads to a lot of frustration and a lot of distrust in our system. And so this was the best opportunity we had to legitimate our process, the point of time between arrest and punishment. And we missed a huge opportunity there.
So as far as, and that was a very solid explanation. I like the degree of severity, and I think it offered a bit more nuance to the discussion. What could have been done better in communicating that? And I'm asking because there is, it's gone back. I'm not exactly entirely sure about the future of the bill, but moving forward, what's the strategy as you see it in better communicating what the RCCA actually does?
Yeah, so the Criminal Code Reform Commission, I think, did a yeoman's job of making its processes transparent and accessible insofar as, even though they were not subject to the open meetings requirement, they had over 50 meetings that were open to the public. They kept minutes of everything and recordings of everything and made them accessible online. The difficulty with it is that most of the work of writing the words on the page and figuring out where the punctuation marks go and reading all of the case law with similar fact patterns and putting all of that constitutional legal research in there is not that enjoyable or interesting for people to weigh in on while it's still in that very raw form and when the technocratic legal research part of it is happening. I have friends who are criminal law professors the way I am, and I could not pay them to read what I was working on over these years because it is extremely dense, and in some ways it's very boring. The part that people want to weigh in on and have opinions about are the penalties. And this document was always supposed to live and breathe and evolve over time. We don't want to have the exact same laws for another 120 years the way we did before. If you look at that model penal code from 50 years ago, it didn't criminalize raping one's spouse, for example. And so as our moral judgments evolve over time, we want to be able to revisit what the community thinks about what should be punished and how severely it should be punished. So the council now has an opportunity to say, let's get more community input on these penalties than we were able to do before. I think 16 years was a long time, and that there was a lot of opportunity there. But I don't think that we should close the door to more input. And so, being in the position that we shouldn't be in at this stage, I think that's the council's responsibility at this point, is to be responsive to what people in the District of Columbia really want to see happen when the bill is explained to them accurately, and incorporate that into what they do next. But don't cower to all of this fear mongering, and don't take the politically convenient route of saying, we're going to pick the things that people are most scared of right now and make those things punishable higher than murder. And that way Congress might leave us alone until the next thing we want to do, when they can bully us again into doing what they asked.
To that point, in reporting about this, it seemed like one aspect people overlooked was that had the bill passed, it wouldn't have gone into effect until 2025. So they were speaking about things in the present tense, and it seemed like they thought that the bill would automatically have an impact on what was happening in the here and now. And even, going back to the final reading of the bill in the final vote, Councilmember George, Councilmember Pinto, those who had experience in criminal justice, they spoke about how, penalties do not lead to diverting criminal behavior. People who live a criminal lifestyle rarely think about the penalties that are getting incurred. So as far as, to that point, expanding people's understanding and, helping them see, about the revised Criminal Code Act. Of course, you say this on the council, but I just wanted to, get more of your thoughts on, and we did talk about the press, but as far as like DC residents, and as best as you can to speak to this, the way that it's set up right now, how do we get DC residents who are not in the political space, the advocacy space, those who are directly affected, regular Joe Schmo DC residents in the space, to actually talk about this, to see what it's about, to understand in the context of their experiences the impact of this bill?
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, I appreciate the framing very much, because not only am I hearing people talk about it in the present tense, I hear people talk about this and about DC Justice Lab's work in the past tense. I mean, we started in 2020. There's nothing that we've worked on that's actually become law yet, except for one thing that's still subject to appropriations. And the way we get blamed for crime is really interesting to me, given how young the organization is and how little change has happened. And that's true across the United States. There's a lot of blaming criminal justice reform. And part of that, Sam, I think, is that there's something happening with the way reporting on law change goes. So if somebody introduces a bill, there's a headline that this person has introduced legislation, and very few people wait and see what happened with that legislation. The headline says this is what the person stands for, and this is what the person wants to see happen. And so all of the political credit is awarded at that time. And so even if there's never a hearing, even if there's never a vote, that is, their job in some ways is done if what they care about is getting political credit for caring about thing X or thing Y. When we talk about getting people to weigh in on these issues meaningfully, I think that we have to talk about not just the substance of the bill, but that civic engagement and making sure that people understand how bills become laws. I've been a practicing attorney in DC for a long time, and I'm learning new things very frequently, I'll say that, about the procedures around this. And I think very few people were unsurprised by some of the rules we saw on the Hill around how disapproval resolutions work in the last couple of weeks. It is a huge part of our work at DC Justice Lab around the other bills that we're working on to figure out how do we create avenues for people who want to weigh in to be able to do that in a meaningful and authentic way, instead of going into a community saying, let me mine you for ideas, going back and writing the law and passing it and changing it to whatever they want to change it to during the markup period. It's also the time to get away from developing the ideas on their own and then going into Black communities and saying, here, come testify in support of this thing and tell everybody why it's such a great idea. We have to figure out a way to engage people at every intercept. And that takes a lot of public education around how political processes work in Washington, D.C. So although I didn't appreciate at the outset of starting DC Justice Lab how challenging that would be, it is an enormous segment of the work that we have to do as an organization. And I'm excited for some of the things we have planned along those lines for later this year to help people who have great ideas, who don't necessarily have a policy advocate on staff or a policy shop that they can call on all the time, help them turn their ideas into real solutions and help them get those solutions passed into law. It is convenient to kind of like fly in and fly out and say, okay, Schoolhouse Rock style, this is how you get a bill through the council. But people really need more support than that if they want to be able to participate in the words that make it onto the page at the very end of the process. And so that's the problem that we're going about solving. And I think it's not just specific to our substantive criminal law, meaning the offense definitions and penalties, but all of the work we're doing around policing, all of the work we're doing around how people are treated who are residing inside our jails, the work to make sure people coming home can fully participate in the community that they were pulled away from helping. So I don't know if that fully answers each part of your question, but that's what comes to mind when I hear it.
I think it definitely does, and you brought up a very good point that civic engagement is a continuous process, and people really have to be engaged, and it does go beyond understanding how the process works. This takes us to my last question, and I sort of just want to bring it home in terms of going back to the Hill. Now that people from the news clips that have circulated online have seen how overtly, anti-Black, racist that this infringement is on Congress, what would you see as not necessarily the solution, because we talk about statehood being the ultimate solution in terms of just giving DC asylum, but until we get to that point, what can we do as residents to better stay in tune, to better educate ourselves, because on May 16th, my understanding is that Bowser is going to come on the Hill himself and go before this committee. But how can we build on what was done on Wednesday as far as going up to the Hill and witnessing these acts?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So the Hands Off DC Coalition that hosted the rally you mentioned at the top of the hour has a website that's Hands Off DC. It's hyphenated, hands-off-dc.com. And you can follow along with the direct action that's being done on this congressional interference there. The other thing that people should do is, although we don't have our own full voting representation on the Hill, we have the ability to hold members of each party responsible to the values that they pretend to espouse. And they need to know that we are watching them and that we are counting these votes and that we recognize that what happened this week and that what happened 3 weeks ago was not only wrong, was not only putting the district in an unsafe position, but was racist at its core. And the more we can drive that message home, that we are watching the way people vote on DC's right to self-govern, and we are understanding it to be a racial justice issue, the better. And you don't have to live in the jurisdiction of a particular senator in order to make that point and in order to highlight or underscore it. Reach out to people who live outside of DC as well, because they do want to hear from their own constituents. But we have every right to go to the offices that are inside our city limits and tell them how we feel, what's important to us, and what we demand. And we should be doing that more than we have been. So let's build on this.
Let's build on this indeed. And we're looking forward to having you back on at some point to update us and, you know, like you said, keep people in the loop so that civic engagement is a continuous, ongoing process. But just want to thank you once again for coming on this program. As I told the viewers earlier, it was a long time coming, and I'm deeply appreciative for having you really break down what the revised criminal code act was supposed to do. So many thanks to you, and peace and blessings. Anything you want to say before we let you go?
Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate all you're doing. I'll let people know they can follow us at DC Justice Lab on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those places. That makes a difference too, believe it or not, having an audience for our voice and for our work, having people agree with us or disagree with us, engage with us on those platforms really means a lot. So I hope people realize it's not a small thing, so please follow along.
Indeed. Patrice Salson, Executive Director of the DC Justice Lab, everyone. Many thanks.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, family. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoying this interview. You know, this was Win TV Overtime, and hopefully we get a chance to do this on a more constant basis. This was very fun, and I'm glad that Denise had a chance to actually jump in as well. I'm Sam P.K. Collins, WI staff writer. Before I sign off, I just want to alert you to what we got going on in the coming weeks. Feel free to always check the website. On the national front, former President Trump got indicted. My colleague Stacey Brown wrote about that. On the local front, we're talking about housing issues, including what at-large Councilmember White revealed yesterday on the steps of the Wilson Building. And we're also talking about the budget. The budget was an ongoing process. I had a chance to talk with DC Council Chairman Phil Mendelson about that earlier. So there are a lot of oversight hearings happening over the next month or so that you need to get involved in if you want to change whatever was in the budget proposal, or if you agree with it, whatever the case is. Feel free to attend these hearings and to make your voice be heard. But we have a lot on the horizon as far as coverage, especially in the areas of politics and education. So with that being said, I'm out, and I'm deeply appreciative for the opportunity to having been here with y'all. Peace and blessings.
Shirley Anita Chisholm was the first African-American woman elected to Congress, where she served for 7 terms beginning in 1969. The daughter of immigrants from Barbados and Guyana, Chisholm had a significant impact on the anti-poverty policies and educational reform. In 1971, she was a founding member of both the Congressional Black Caucus and the National Women's Political Caucus. Chisholm was also the first African-American woman to campaign for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination in 1972 with the slogan "Unbought and Unbossed." Always an advocate for poor and inner-city residents, Chisholm said, quote, "I am and always will be a catalyst for change." Democratic Representative Barbara Lee on Tuesday announced her campaign for the U.S. Senate in California, joining a competitive Democratic primary to fill the retiring seat of Senator Dianne Feinstein. She commented saying, quote, "Today I am proud to announce my candidacy for the U.S. Senate. I've never backed down from doing what's right, and I never will. Californians deserve a strong, progressive leader who has delivered real change." Lee was first elected to the House in 1998 in a special election and has been re-elected 13 times. She's a member of the House Democratic leadership, serving as co-chair of the Democratic Steering Committee, and was the former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. If elected, she would be the sole Black female senator serving in the Congress and only the third in U.S. history.